By Allan Smith on this proposed T&D for the former Stockburger site. And here's where we are in this process, as outlined in our subdivision and land development ordinance for T&D approval. Mr. Smith has made 2 presentations of his sketch plan to the Planning Commission. The Planning Commission has recommended that the sketch plan now be reviewed by Borough Council, and Council is seeing this plan for the first time tonight. The sketch plan review process is optional. By presenting this plan to Council and the community who are here tonight, Mr. Smith has the opportunity to get feedback from us before heading into the formal process. Council doesn't make any formal motions at this stage. This is an opportunity to express opinions and make suggestions. But according to the ordinance, neither borough nor the developer is obligated in any way by this discussion. Mr. Smith.
Good evening. It was about 2 years ago that this subject was first broached at the Stockburger Chevrolet dealership. We had sent out invitations to every property owner in the borough and invited them down to a sort of ice cream social where we presented the ideas. Now, for someone of my age, 2 years is a long time. In fact, I think George Bush was president when that presentation was made. And so, as a result, I think I'm going to take a minute to recap so we understand how we came to be here in the first place. The genesis of the redevelopment of the Stockburger property is really found in the borough's comprehensive plan. It was the borough's comprehensive plan that set forth, among many other goals, 2 that were very important. 1, the preservation and enhancement of the green infrastructure of the borough, and 2, to ensure the economic vitality of the downtown business district. Now, those 2 points didn't just fall out of the sky into the comprehensive plan. They got there because of the hard work, many hours of volunteers on the Creek Committee, volunteers on the Parking Committee, the Planning Commission, the Borough Council, who were looking out long-term for Newtown Borough's benefit and came up with these ideas and put them in the comprehensive plan. Now, when the joint Downtown Newtown Corporation was formed and appointed a design committee, the design committee looked to the comprehensive plan for guidance. And it created the visioning map, which is what we have on the wall here. It memorialized those 2 points in, it's very small, but number 14 showed a parking garage, the idea being that parking would help the economic vitality of the downtown. And also it showed the creek walk with a series of pedestrian bridges across the creek linking the retail side of the township on Sycamore Street with the retail side of State Street in the borough. Now, that visioning map, after it was put together, it was placed on the wall in the Borough Hall. It's also in the Township Building, and we all sort of forgot it, occasionally referring to it to figure out where something was in the borough, and hopefully the idea was it would inspire ideas. So some years went by, and lo and behold, something happened that none of us anticipated, and that was General Motors went bankrupt. And Stockburger Chevrolet, who had served this community so well for 50 years, ceased to bid. I was approached by a number of people in the borough who said, we should take a look at this. And I pulled out this visioning map, and I thought about it. I already owned the State Store. And I realized that there were now 7, 8, or 9 acres even of blacktop sitting in the middle of a nationally registered historic district, right in the middle of the borough's business district. And it presented an opportunity that probably hadn't been there for 300 years. Well, I also realized this was a very ambitious and very large project, one that was over my pay grade. And so I sought out the best expertise I could find to assist me in the endeavor. And I was very fortunate in that a gentleman that lives in the community, knew Newtown, Bob Hillier, had just sold his architectural practice, which he had built to the 3rd largest in the United States, and was now looking for things to do. Bob, in addition to serving on the faculty at Princeton teaching architecture and planning, has won numerous awards, both national, historic, local. The gentleman knows this stuff so well, he's lectured at the United Nations on it. It's the kind of help you need if you're Allan Smith. So with Bob's assistance, and it's Bob's idea, we sent that invitation out to every borough property owner. We wanted everyone to know what was going on. And that nice summer night, with the ice cream provided by Goodnose, we presented a concept of a mixed-use project, a project that had residential, office, and retail components. And the reception was so enthusiastic that two things happened. One, the borough decided to amend their ordinance to allow a traditional neighborhood development to take place there. And two, based on the reception and the borough's actions, we purchased the property. Now, for the past 2 years, the borough has been working on their traditional neighborhood development ordinance and, of course, have passed it. And we have been working with the Planning Commission trying to take the plan and start to gather ideas as to what would be in the borough's best interest in this traditional neighborhood development. And just gathering that information was very informative. We came up with any number of sketch plans. And one of the sketch plans that we liked, which let's see if I can get to it here. This plan was dated January 2010, and it was this plan that was used for the traffic study that was commissioned on the borough's behalf to figure out what the impact of traffic would be from a development such as this. Now, this is an iterative process. The plan you see up there calls for 140 condominiums, 55,600 square feet of retail space, and 100,000 square feet of office space. And when the traffic study using this plan came back, we learned any number of things. For example, we learned that when you look at residential use, the traffic generated by a residence, 1,000 square foot, say, condominium, is less than half of what 1,000 square feet of offices generate. So we started thinking about that. We also met with the Planning Commission, and looking at the plan, we started thinking about what they wanted. And this plan keeps changing and will continue to change for the next year as we gather input. Just to give you two examples, we thought the original creek walk that we had proposed was supposed to be this sylvan, untouched by nature, untouched by man walkway down the creek. And in meeting with the Planning Commission, we were to learn that the borough really preferred something more interactive with the commercial downtown. The idea being that you could have a restaurant sitting on the creek, you could enjoy a glass of wine or a beer and look at the creek, look at perhaps the Center Avenue Bridge, maybe illuminate it. That was a different idea for a creek walk than we had, but we think it's a good one, and as you'll see later, we've embraced it. Another idea was, and this is the balancing act, and this is something that we all need to consider, and we're looking for input from the borough on this, on how to balance it. This shows this 100,000 square feet of office space. Well, as I just mentioned, the traffic study showed that is generating a great deal of traffic, and we thought, well, on the one hand, this traffic is a conundrum. We want traffic downtown to help our retail users. We want to save the Newtown Hardware House, so we want people to come into town and shop there. But on the other hand, none of us want so much traffic that it makes the quality of life poor. So it's sort of a balancing act. What's the proper amount of traffic to save our merchants without going to too much traffic that causes real problems? And again, it's a balancing act. So one way of looking at this was if the office was generating more than twice as much traffic as the residential, if you took that 100,000 square feet of office and you say each condominium was 1,000 feet, round number, that would give you 100 condominiums. That would cut the amount of traffic in half. If each condominium was 2,000 feet, it would cut the amount of traffic in half again. So we had to weigh what's the benefit there. Now, I've just recently learned, and this is another piece of the puzzle, that the more office you have, the more earned income we have. And that's a good thing. So that pushes you to say, well, let's crack down, reduce the residential, and let's increase the amount of office. And that's something that has to be weighed, because this project, when it's all said and done, should not cost the borough a nickel. If anything, it should make the borough money. In addition, when the project's all done, ideally, it's going to save our merchants, expand the ability for Dave Callahan, Newtown Hardware, to do well, without creating so much traffic to be a nightmare. So these are the problems that we are confronted with, the issues, the opportunities that we're working with the Planning Commission, and we want the general public to participate in as well. And I said this before, I said it 2 years ago, I'll say it again, my office is at the Stocking Works. The boards, these presentation boards are at the Stocking Works. They're here tonight, but they're also at the Stocking Works. And I invite each and every one of you to stop by the office and discuss this with me. The borough's not so large that we can't meet. Now, this iterative process of figuring out what's the best use will go on and on as we gather more data, as I've said. And there's a number of ideas out there. We're going to introduce them to you. I want to show you, well, and this is what we're confronted with right now, which is obviously just a lot of blacktop. But something of importance to me that I want to share with you is I have a passion for good architecture, for design. I think that's evident in the Stocking Works and the Whitehall and in virtually all my projects. Not virtually, in all my projects. And because of that, I looked at what could happen or the kind of architecture that you might see elsewhere. Now, this is the brand new, state-of-the-art, New Hope, fine wine and good spirits store. This store, I can tell you, the Pennsylvania Liquor Control Board loves it. They want to use it as their prototype. It's very efficient. Builders love it. It's inexpensive to build. You know, it's a fine building, I suppose, if you want to place it next to an Acme or a Gennardi's or where it is next to the Giant in New Hope. The building looks a lot to me like the empty Blockbuster in Newtown Township. And that's one of the issues I have here. In a nationally registered historic district, in an area with architecture as fine as ours, I don't believe a building like this belongs. I don't think I can bring myself to do this kind of project with these kinds of buildings. You know, I was raised here in the borough, and thinking it through and how the borough's architect affected me, you know, I just realized that to do this is sacrilegious. My goal here is to have architecture, while not of the same era of the borough's historic architecture. I want architecture that's of the same quality. I want the feeling of this new project to give you the same feeling as the business district between Washington and Center Avenue, not the way you feel when you're standing in front of the Gennardi's. And creating that feeling, we can't use a suburban zoning standard. So, if we're trying to get to that standard of very good quality architecture, architecture that 100 years from now people will revere it as we revere the architecture that we have that's come from 150 years ago, we need to move beyond the suburban model. And the gentleman that can move us beyond the suburban model, as I said, has far more experience than me, is Bob Hillier, and I'm going to ask him to take over and sort of give you an update of where we are. Let me repeat, we welcome all input from everyone. We don't have any of the answers. Robert?